As the face of the NBA, LeBron James, usually an open book on most subjects, but he has made it clear he plans to keep his decision regarding whether he will get the COVID-19 vaccination private. During All-Star Weekend, he told reporters, quote, "That's a conversation that my family and I will have. Pretty much keep that to a private thing. Obviously, I saw Adam had his comments about the vaccination, but things like that, when you decide to do something, that's a conversation between you and your family and not for everybody. I'll keep it that way." So here's what Stephen A. had to say in reaction to LeBron's comments on the show yesterday.
I want to make sure that I let the world know that I have decided I had the same apprehensions as LeBron James, particularly believing that it was a private matter. I have changed my mind. Not only am I taking the vaccine, I will take it today. If you look at COVID-19, this coronavirus pandemic, it has clearly disproportionately affected the African American community. To make sure that you're not ravaged by the ultimate effects of COVID-19 taking over your body. And more importantly than that, you have an obligation to make sure that you articulate that the risks are far outweighed by the risks that can come your way if you do not get vaccinated.
And Stephen A. using his platform to send a message. Just yesterday, true to his word, our very own Stephen A. Smith got his first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, Stephen A. and Max, they will be back on the show tomorrow. So, Chene, what is your reaction to really the debate whether getting your COVID-19 vaccination and LeBron James saying he wants to keep it private? Should it be private or should it be made public?
First and foremost, I want to salute Stephen A. Smith, who really, did a courageous thing and not only, expressing his own truth, but then also following through on that. And then also, being one of those people that are taking it publicly to try to ease some of those apprehensions amongst our community, the Black community. And he's someone that I always say, like, he's Stephen A. I may be Chene, but I'm going to try to come correct on everything like him. He sets such a hard a high standard. And I think on this issue, we all know when it comes to LeBron James, he carries a really heavy burden of pressure, both on and off the court. And we already know this when it comes to his performances, how we scrutinize those, especially late in games and, in the postseason, based on how he has been able to chase the greatest of all time title, right? But we all know that that really spills to off the court as well. And LeBron James is really unique where he's positioned in the game, being a guy that has been at the intersection of both sports and society. And his platform using technology based on like the 2020 and when he came into the league, his platform is bigger than anyone else's because guess what? He built it that way. And I think that's a lot of the pressure that he sort of feels to sort of have to address this, publicly. And we all know that his opinion really carries an unbelievable amount of influence, right? But that doesn't really mean that certain things, should be made public, that everything has to be public, especially when it comes to this vaccine. I know that, LeBron James, he has to plan to be extremely careful in what he says and how he says it and when he says it, especially when it comes to issues that are so important, something that has such great urgency, because we know that coronavirus is disproportionately affecting Black and brown communities. And so this is very important. When he speaks, we listen. So, hearing these things, I'm not surprised just by him taking it a little bit more privately. Again, the NBA is 75% Black, and there is a real apprehension about receiving the vaccine. And this is consistent, though, with the representation that we are sort of fighting for in all industries, not just the medical field. There is history within our country of reasons for us to be apprehensive about it. But I think that's why education really matters. And that's exactly why, as a member of the WNBPA, our Players Association, we sort of go through the same things that the NBPA is doing. But our Players Association, we've meticulously gone through the process of trying to educate our players on the role that the vaccine has right now in fighting the pandemic so that we can make informed decisions, individually, but also collectively trying to help one another, right? And this is where I think the NBA really has suffered in their, 2 seasons. I always said the NBA season is like 2 seasons wrapped in one, because they had 71 days in between seasons. And so a lot of the conversations that we had when we wrapped our season on a similar timeline, we have 5 months to sit and had like over 4 Zooms, bringing in doctors that look like us to have these conversations so that we can ask them exactly what's going on. But with 71 days in between seasons, it's hard to really nail down all the players and sort of say, hey, during this time while you're traveling, and we all know what the second half of the NBA schedule really looks like, it's hard to get everyone on the same page. And that's why this is something that I'm not surprised that LeBron James is a little bit more patient on educating himself and also just keeping it more private. And I think it all, like, you know, it all comes back to education for me because, you know, you have to educate yourself so that you can educate others. And that's exactly what LeBron James has done with every decision. And if it's private, then maybe he feels like it's not his position. Again, it's to each individual, no matter, you know, their stature, to make such a decision. But, you know, for me personally, I have a little sister who is in her first year in medical school, and we are so proud of her. Also proud of my other little sister who's about to finish business school. But she, you know, transitioned to medical school in the middle of the pandemic, right? She, you know, as a part of the students, they all had to get vaccinated because that is part of the process, knowing that you're taking care of other, other people. And so she personally made it her mission to educate us and our family about the vaccine. And I will take the vaccine when I can, right? And based on the education that I received and my comfort level. But I understand that this is every individual's purview, and hopefully everyone will do their homework before making an informed decision. But I really do salute Stephen A. Smith for using his platform to really show that this matters. First of all, we're all apprehensive in this time. We're in a very unique time in this country. But, you know, making sure that we take care of one another has always been one of the pillars that I'm all about. And this is something I've learned about sports, right? Like, you care about the last person on the bench as much as you care about yourself. And that energy is what, you know, sort of, and plus, you know, the help of my little sister as well, holding it down for our family, has helped me have the confidence to take it once my age group is allowed.
Yeah, Janae, everything you said, you know, I wholeheartedly agree. You know, last week I hosted a webinar with Dr. Patrice Harris, former president of the American Medical Association. And the topic of the webinar was COVID and the vaccine and Black and brown communities. Because as Stephen A. mentioned on the show previously, this affects us at a disproportionate rate. But what is also troubling for Black and brown communities is the fact that we're not getting vaccinated as quickly as some other people. So, you know, this is such a huge, important decision for every American, and particularly people that look like us, right? But when I heard this question, when it was posed, you know, in our production meeting, my first thought, I'm torn on it, because my first thought was like, man, can we let LeBron live? Like, just for a second. All he said was, this is a private matter. Now, he has been out front, outspoken on so many things, so many times. Because we as media have asked, or because he has voluntarily shared his thoughts on things. LeBron, in just the past couple years, has been told to shut up and dribble. Hey, come on, like, help rock the vote, fight voter suppression. Hey, LeBron, you know, help these kids with your charter school. Like, at some point, again, his voice carries so much weight. But I feel like the idea that we're wondering, like, should LeBron should actually use his platform to tell people da-da-da-da. I feel like that's what, you know, I'm torn on it because, again, hosting that webinar, you know, what Dr. Harris and I talked about was how people in our community are skeptical because there's history to back it up. These aren't just unfounded fears. There's American history that is rooted in our distrust in the system, the medical, you know what I mean? Like that's real stuff. However, the same way Stephen A. talked about, I was hesitant. I had reservations just like LeBron, but I've changed my mind. Who's to say LeBron? I don't know LeBron James. I don't profess to know what he plans on doing. All I know is he said it's a private matter. So who knows whether he will take it or not, but if he does, maybe he'll come out and tell us. And his voice will carry weight. But the idea that we have to then judge him not speaking up on something the minute we want him to, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be his personal decision, and as it will be for every single player in the NBA. Adam Silver has already said he believes most NBA players will wind up getting the vaccine, per their personal choice, but it is not going to be a requirement. All right, ladies, we are going to wrap it there because we have a 3-time champ joining us on the show.